Picture this. You've always dreamed of the greatest love story of all time, worthy of the greatest poets. Then, in a blink of an eye, you're standing in front of the man of your dreams. He's shining as bright as the sun. But wait, he's literally shining, and he's no mortal man, but instead the Greek god of light and music, Apollo. Hello everyone, I'm Rainbow Hearts Villain Thoughts, a book lover who loves reading so much I decided to start my own book review channel. I read gay romance books and books that cover backstories slash retellings of villains. As always, you're welcome to either agree or disagree with my review, just please keep it friendly in the comments below, and if you feel implied to, please always make sure to do your own research, just in case there's something I might have missed about the book or wasn't able to cover in the review. Now, this review, I'm starting something a little different, which is going to be heat level. So from now on, I'll be giving heat scale, telling you, the reader, if the book is cold as ice, appropriate for everyone, or if it's hot as the sun, involving heavy adult themes that also include heated adult action. Now, this book, Courtesan of Apollo, is a 4 out of 5 on the heat list. But just in case this book is not your thing because of that, don't worry. I've read two other books that are 1 heat level to 0 heat level. The gay romance Haunting Between Us, a young adult gay romance that also includes horror and thriller type setting, as well as Heartless, a thrilling backstory to Wonderland's most deranged monarch, the Queen of Hearts. Both books are appropriate for all readers, as The Haunting Between Us has closed door intimacy, meaning you don't actually see or read any of the intimacy parts to it. And Queen Heartless has no intimacy whatsoever. So those are appropriate books for everyone to read in case those are more your style. But if you are looking for a heated book that's a 5 out of 5, you can check out my review for Last Courtesan of Olympus. All right. Now for the content warning of this book. This book I'm reviewing today contains the following: gay adult heat scene in detail, as well as mention of character death, past tense and not the main characters, but still there. Both viewers and reader discretion is advised, as this is for adults only. Today I'll be giving a spoiler-free review of the book Apollo's Courtesan, written by Amanda Meuwissen. And if either the name of the book, this book, or the author's name sound familiar, that's because this book is a standalone follow-up to Miss Amanda's book Last Courtesan of Olympus, which I previously reviewed on the channel. This book is a fantasy adult gay romance book taking place in ancient Greece within Greek mythology, following the story of Dax and the Greek god of light, Apollo. Dax has always longed for love, love hot enough to set the world on fire. So when his best friend Achios sets him up with his dream man, or dream god, Apollo, Dax thinks he's finally going to get his happy ending. However, Apollo seems to have some reservations when it comes to being intimate with Dax. Alright, so first of all, I want to talk about the pacing. And I'm sorry if that summary sounds a little abrupt ending. I really didn't know what to write to not give away too much of this book, as this book is fairly short. So sorry about the summary. Now, pacing. The pacing of this book was faster than its predecessor. So this book actually was faster than Last Courtesan of Olympus. But I feel like that's largely due to the fact this book is actually shorter. As for Courtesan of Olympus, Last Courtesan of Olympus was like, I think 200 something pages. Apollo's Courtesan was only 100 something pages. So this book is shorter. So I feel like that's why the pacing was faster. Um, but it did give me the same feeling as the previous book. The pacing felt like it dragged on, kind of, more than it actually did, which was surprising to me since this book was shorter. So I mean, the pacing was fast, but to me, it felt slow, if that makes sense. At times it felt like it kind of dragged on, and I really just wanted this book to end at certain points. So now for the plot. Whether the plot was character heavy or scene or dialogue heavy, or sorry, plot heavy, and I'm going to have to say it was definitely character heavy. The main driving force of this book was the eternal conflict between both Dax and more so of Apollo. The main plot is for either the issue between them and issues within Apollo will be resolved. Um, or whether they will go their separate ways, unable to truly be together. Now, I kind of liked the plot because of that. It felt like the plot was more centerfold compared to Last Courtesan of Olympus, because that was the whole point, was whether or not they'll be able to, get over what's holding them back, or if they're just going to, say, "Oh well, we can't do this. We tried." Um, and I'm sorry if this review kind of sounds muddied or muddled. I'm looking at my notes and they're kind of like blending together, unfortunately. So I do apologize. Um, all right, so next we're going to go with character analysis of Dax and Apollo. So Apollo's Courtesan features two main characters, the human and courtesan Dax, and the god of light and music Apollo. So first let's talk about Dax. Dax was the character that I wanted so badly to connect with. As a mortal thrown into a completely different and new situation, almost everyone there has been there before. However, Dax's actions and push were just too much for me to bear, to keep me from fully siding with or connecting with this character. Dax's motivations are believable, but not my favorite motivation at all. Dax wants to prove himself to Apollo that he is a courtesan worthy of the Greek god's affection. However, it comes off as rather flat and more often than not overbearing and almost a bit blindly pursued. And while Dax does change slightly and realizes he needs to be more than just a courtesan, it still feels kind of shallow and as if he didn't really get the message. So, yeah, Dax is kind of this character that he uses what he was brought up on, which is to be a courtesan, but it kind of comes off as almost forceful at times. Like he's not actually listening to what Apollo needs or wants, which is the opposite of what, his best friend did, what Achios did in the last book. So Dax is kind of infuriating character to me. And almost at times kind of coming off as manipulative, which I didn't like. Now, as for Apollo, things are a bit different. Apollo, I feel, is far easier for most people to relate to, despite him being a Greek god. He's a man who has been burned by love in the past, more than once at that. As a result, he's far more reserved and scared of being used. Most people, myself included, have had a fear of being used or manipulated only to be thrown away when no longer of use. And when that person who does that is someone we love and thought loved us, then things can definitely hurt a lot more and end up leaving a deep scar. Apollo's motivations are quite frankly believable and more deeper than Dax's. Apollo is driven by this love and care for Dax. However, after being hurt before, he is weary and unsure if he can ever truly again love someone, even with Dax. This at times does lead to rather awkward moments between Apollo and Dax, their motivations clashing and not really connecting. And honestly, I think between the two men, Apollo is definitely the one who changes the most and for the better. But I feel like his change was a bit rushed and not as thoroughly gone through like I would have preferred. Still, it's far deeper and better than Dax's was, which honestly came off as a bit of a surprise for me. So now I want to talk about the writing style and theme of the book. The tone of this book is very pining. Both Dax and Apollo want the other, arguably in different ways at first. And by that I mean Dax wants Apollo physically and emotionally, while Apollo just wants him emotionally before they get physical. Yet neither one can see the other's want and love for them. There's also a dash of forgiveness in this book, forgiving those we felt wronged us, and forgiving ourselves. Which I honestly kind of like that, because Apollo has to learn to forgive himself and to forgive those he felt wronged him, and he kind of does do that because of Dax, which I love. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like Dax was much of a driving force, even though he was. So I felt that was kind of, you know, a, a little annoying, but it is what it is. I liked the tone and plot and thought it was well done, even if a bit rushed. Now, the atmosphere of this book was a bit bumpy, kind of like riding a plane that keeps going in and out of turbulence. One minute I feel the emotion coming off of Apollo, and I just want to hug this guy and tell him everything is going to be okay and to just trust Dax. Because Apollo really needs to know he can trust other people, especially Dax. Instead of holding up on this feeling of betrayal and hurt, and that he's undeserving of love when he actually is. Other times, though, I really wanted to slap Dax and tell him he's more than just a body for another's use. Dax really infuriated me a lot with how he came off as just a tool for others to use. And I feel like though that kind of wasn't really handled good because I feel like that wasn't really proven to Dax that it's not true. Like, at the end it was, but it felt kind of like a snap moment, kind of a moment that wasn't really earned to me. I think you may disagree, but I feel like the earning of that moment was kind of rushed. So yeah. And I believe the author wanted us to feel for both men and to root for the two of them, but ended up really caring for Dax, which slightly ruined the atmosphere of the book slightly. So after reading this book, I felt the emotional impact was a bit softened and blurred, especially by the steamy part of the book. It almost felt like nothing changed really, at least for one of the characters. I felt happy in the end for the two, but I didn't feel an overwhelming joy, rather a, oh thank goodness it's finally over. Now they are together, what now? As for their book being a steamy romance book, I have to also talk about the steam parts, with no detail naturally. All I'll say is the steam part feels less overused as compared to Last Courtesan of Olympus, solely though because this is only one part in the book and not multiple parts, which I guess kind of makes sense with this book being shorter. So now let's talk about the strengths of this book, which means parts of it that I liked. And what I thought was a great strength to this book was the description of places, people, and physical feelings. While similar to Last Courtesan of Olympus, Amanda proves their ability to describe scenes and locations, and it's mind-baffling to me. They do such a fantastic job of describing things with description that I felt like I was there. One particular area in the book made me wish it was actually real, and that I was on that I had a one-way ticket to Greece just to live in that place for the rest of my life. Wi-Fi be darned, lol. I was totally prepared to go there and live my best life. I think as an author, Amanda has a talent and great knack for creating description, and that really shines not only during the steamy moments, but in the other parts of the book as well, which I really enjoyed because some authors don't really excel at that, and description comes off flat. And I speak from experience because when I try to write something with description, I fail epically. Another strength I have found with this book is that, unlike its predecessor, this one focuses more on romance with a pinch of heat, rather than a plot full of spice and nothing more. So, this does have heat at the end, again, that is quite descriptive, but it's not the main driving plot, and that's what Dax wants. But Apollo is more rounded out as a character compared to Achios from the last book, being the main character alone and him being kind of, messy. Um, that makes sense. Now, weaknesses of this book, which is what I didn't like. Because naturally, if I talk about strengths, I have to talk about the weaknesses of this book. And honestly, this book suffers from the same issue as Last Courtesan of Olympus. Courtesan of Apollo's Courtesan is just way too short to fully flesh out the story fully. And while Courtesan was primarily a steamy book, Apollo's Courtesan isn't. It's meant to be a romance with steam in it. And because of that, I just wish the book had been longer. That way, the pain would have hurt more and the joy would have been more profound and earned compared to what we get in the book. It just was a little of a letdown, and I was definitely disappointed. So, now for my rating. This is going to join Last Courtesan of Olympus with a rating of 2.5 Rainbow Hearts. I really hate to do this to another book by Amanda Meuwissen. However, I'm not giving up hope on her books. I know she's an amazing author, as she has sold quite a number of her books, and already have another one of them ready to read, fingers crossed. I'm actually currently kind of reading that of another book, and so far I do like what I'm reading of the main character. But fingers crossed it continues to feel like that because Apollo's Courtesan and Last Courtesan of Olympus kind of tanked for my taste, at least. So hopefully this book is a lot better. Now, my recommendation for this book. If you're looking for a romance book with a steamy scene that is short and not very long, then definitely check out this book. Or if you read Last Courtesan of Olympus and want to know what happened with Dax at, at the end of that book, then I would recommend this book to quench your thirst. However, I can't say this will be a book I'll pick up again. It just wasn't for me, to be honest. And as much as I really wanted to love this book because of Greek mythology, I just can't recommend it for people who are looking for a good, longer book or a flushed out book. So my final thoughts of this book. I don't know why I said rating next, because I put rating before that. Sorry, guys. Um, so my final thoughts on this book. This book is definitely not one of my favorites. I'm gonna go next to or below Last Courtesan of Olympus. Though at least that book had a reason to be shorter, this one had the need to be longer, but just didn't cut it. The book felt rushed, and the more sweet scenes felt kind of forced and not at all as natural as I wish they had been. The only thing that ended up sticking with me from this book was Apollo's sphere and the description of certain areas, as I said before. And all in all, this book fell short of my expectations, and I wish it hadn't, as I wanted to enjoy it more. But unfortunately, it is what it is. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching this review, and sorry it was kind of messy. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this review and if this book is a pick up or a pass on it for you. As always, I recommend listening to other reviews. If you're purchasing off of a site with reader reviews, always check those out before purchasing a book. Also, let me know in the comments below if you have any steamy gay romance books you'd like for me to give it a try. And when I'm able to, I'll definitely get to reading them. I have kind of a long list of books at the moment, but always love a good recommendation. And the same goes for unheated romance books for adults and young adults, and villain backstories / retellings. If you have any book recommendations, please drop them in the comments below, as I would love to see them. Anywho, thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one, which will be a young adult gay romance book. And let me tell you, that one ripped my heart out in the most tragic yet beautiful way imaginable, and I'm still hurting from that book. Until next time, keep reading, stay safe. Bye, everyone.